Welcome to the Searching for Answers podcast. Today we'll be talking about and comparing Shakespeare's King Richard III and Al Pacino's Looking for Richard. Today we have Al Pacino in the studio discussing why he believes Shakespeare's play King Richard III deserved a film adaptation. He'll also be helping us to understand how and why he did what he did to attract modern audiences. Thank you so much for having me in the studio today. I'm very, very excited to discuss my thoughts and feelings in regards to King Richard and my film Looking for Richard. So let's talk about your thought process going into the project. What were your initial thoughts and what did you want to achieve through this film? Well, when going into the project, I specifically knew that I wanted to create my own version of Richard and set him in a time where people can experience Shakespeare's literary masterpieces and understand them in a more palatable form. I set out to take on as much of the character of Richard as possible. 6 minutes into the film, I did a voiceover and I explained the point of the project. I say that it has been a dream of mine to communicate how I feel about Shakespeare to other people. And by taking this one play, Richard III, analysing it, approaching it from different angles, putting on costumes, playing out scenes, we could essentially communicate our passion for it and our understanding that we've come to in doing that, and communicate Shakespeare that is about how we feel and how we think today. And I aim to take the character of Richard and employ it into a society that I believe still connects the concepts and ideas present from the Elizabethan era. Of which it was written. In Shakespeare's version of King Richard III, Richard is a character that holds a significant amount of anger and resentment to himself and the world around him due to his visible deformity. He explains this in the opening of the play, describing himself to the audience as deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce half made up. He makes it extremely clear from the beginning how cheated he was by nature. This then translates into his overall villainous personality, as he sees no other option than becoming a Machiavellian character. Shakespeare's Richard, I feel, is more sure-footed. He is portrayed and seen as really stern from the beginning. He has a plan, it's concise. Whereas my Richard begins off quite placid. You can almost feel bad for him due to his visible deformity. He presents himself in a calm manner and invokes an almost emotional response. I did this to support the idea of Richard becoming progressively more of a Machiavellian character, conveying the message that he adapted and was pushed to become the way he is by his surroundings. As the film goes on, his confidence builds, and this is where the evil eventually shines through his web of lies and deceit. I wanted to blur the lines between what was me being real life and what was Richard's character, and I did this by designing the costumes I wore to be all black. When I spoke about Richard, I wore black, and when I played Richard, I wore black. My outfits were basic, plain but effective, due to being cohesive throughout the whole film, and I wanted to achieve that. In turn, this made Richard come to life, which sold the concepts involving his overruling personality and the traits that he developed over the course of Shakespeare's play, which translated into the way I felt was the best way to play him. Deciphering this throughout my film was something that I wanted to emphasize all the way through. For me, I wanted to capture how intricate Richard's thought processes would be and how dark and compelling his manipulations could travel. For instance, the film progresses. As the film progresses, it was made sure that viewers would become slightly confused. There was a lack of editing in there that was what I wanted to achieve, to create a seamless transition between myself, Richard, and the experts in the film. This created confusion as there was no clear indications as to if it was in character or not. This in turn made it really hard to distinguish what parts of me were acting and what parts of me were Richard taking over. Slowly, the experts' ideas and inputs were reduced. Less and less actors were shown, and as it gets to the end, the dialogue between myself and the people involved in the project becomes slightly hostile. And all of this was done purposefully to highlight and allow an understanding of how twisted the character of Richard can be. It's almost as though I'm morphing into Richard, which really created a dark feel towards the end. Does your film connect to modern audiences, and do you feel as though it kept the same contextual message as Shakespeare was trying to convey in the 1500s? I feel as though my film connects to modern audiences in many ways, some more subtle than others, but yes, nonetheless. The film itself isn't completely different to Shakespeare's King Richard III play, and I wanted to bring the context of Shakespeare's play into a more modern audience because I believe that having an understanding of Shakespeare's intent and writing's meaning is relevant in our current society. The main theme of Richard III is the conflict between good and evil, and with Richard embodying all that is foul, including the ability to mask his evil with a fair face. Although there are times that are unsettled, it is Richard's psychopathology that and his mad, selfish, destructive drive for power that moves the play forward. And Richard's opening soliloquy in Act 1, Scene 1 spells out the evil at hand and is superbly disturbing in words. Here it is. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that lured upon our house. In the deep bosom of the ocean buried, grim-visaged, war hath smoothed his wrinkled front. Without Richard's sheer drive for the power, there wouldn't be a play. The main focus in Shakespeare's Richard is the pursuit of power, and this is why I'm so enthralled by Richard as a character, because there are so many people in modern times, maybe not as gruesome and driven by murder, but individuals that will do anything to acquire some form of power. And this is why I wanted to bring this film to modern audiences. When filming the Vox Pops, so many people in the general public had no idea who Shakespeare was or couldn't tell me the basic things about him, like a specific play or quote. This showed me how important it was to revive historical forms of literature. When individuals interviewed knew about Shakespeare and his plays, I was met by negativity, and even one member of the public said, "Shakespeare? What the fuck do you know about Shakespeare?" Which is valid. What do I know? I'm an American man, which makes people believe that I can't successfully portray a character done so well by so many English scholars and actors. It's just something that isn't necessarily embraced with open arms. The Vox Pops also helped me connect to a modern audience. I was able to feel for what people thought about Shakespeare, which gave me a feel for what I needed to create in my film regarding context and how the overall message needed to be in the end. Essentially, all I wanted to do was bring Richard to life, and I'm actually really quite happy with how he turned out. Let's talk about the filming style in this film. Why did you choose to produce the film in the way that you did? Well, my filming style in this project was an aim to keep things current, modern, and fast. I wanted to create an organic feel to the whole project, which also helps show how invested everyone on the project is. We used handheld cameras for the filming as it really helped retain the project's documentary style feel. This gave an effect of a stream of consciousness throughout the whole film. There are a significant amount of really quick camera movements, and this was done to further support the organic feel of the film. The quick camera movements were done when interviewing the Vox Pops went out on the streets, and this just helped to flow the whole essential vibe of what I wanted to create the film. At one point towards the end of the film, there is a scene of me on the basketball court. The camera pans to me in the middle of the court, and this scene was devised to show that I'm a central placeholder within the film. I'm wearing a long black coat, and this is one of the first times we begin to blur the lines between myself as like me, and the character of Richard. The basketball court scene also acts as a way of symbolism, as it acts like an akin to an Elizabethan court. This is also a way that I tried to adapt the play into a modernized way with the addition of typical American activities such as basketball, which I felt was successful because I was able to connect it to things within the Elizabethan era. All in all, you did a fantastic job on this film. Thank you so much for being here to talk today so in depth about your project. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.